Let's talk a little bit about what to do on a make-ready, different ways of thinking and approaching. Now, every apartment is going to be a little bit different, and what we've got is an example of a vacant apartment that is in the make-ready process. And what we're going to do is look at different things or areas to keep in mind while you're turning an apartment. Look around the lock area, around the doorknob. Make sure that this is the impression that you want to give to your brand new resident. In addition, this is an area of great liability because they're going to be using this lock and their key to secure. So you want to make sure that the key that goes into the lock works very well, crisp, clean, and easily. That way anybody can use it to get into their apartment. You also want to make sure that the key is brand new to this resident and preferably to the property. That way nobody else has a key to get into this apartment. Since we're on the inside of the door, be sure that when you throw the deadbolt, in other words, cause the bolt to go into the frame, that it has a full motion, that it goes all the way over and locks in place. Resident's peephole, what they're going to be able to see who's on the other side of the door with. It needs to be clean, clear, and give you a full picture of what you need to see depending on what the peephole was designed to show you. Door stops are used to maintain both the hardware on the door itself and the drywall or the wall material behind the door. In this case, the door stop needs to be tightened down by pushing down on the pin itself. That would be a part of the turn process. When it comes to closet doors, be sure that both doors open fully and completely. They run and have their full range of motion. One big tip that many residents, new residents, look for is whether or not the door will close all the way, or if there is dirt and debris and things inside the tracks, both up and down. One of the key areas to look at is things like an electrical panel that overspray or a sloppy paint job is going to show up very distinctly on. This, especially since in this apartment it's right in the front doorway, the electrical panel is going to be a focus of attention not only for our residents but for everybody who comes into the apartment. In some areas of the country, it is illegal to cover or obscure the location of the breaker panel itself. On the inside of the panel, be sure and notice that all the breakers need to be in the on position so that when our resident moves in, they can plug in a washer or dryer if your particular apartment happens to have that, and save you from a call that their new dryer or washer, even though it's plugged in, doesn't work. One thing also to check from a safety standpoint is that the circuits actually match the breaker itself, to where if it says kitchen circuit over here, the breaker that is assigned to it right here also matches the actual kitchen. Look for small items, small touches, such as the little felt pads in the corners of the cabinets. If a cabinet door itself is bent a little bit, you can make adjustments to the hinges inside. Test and reset the GFCIs in the apartment. This way it can save a service request for a later date. Be sure and verify that there's a splash guard in place for a garbage disposal and that it's in a good condition. Also, check to ensure that you don't have any drips or leaks coming out of the faucet itself or around the base where the faucet contacts the sink. Be sure that you look underneath in the cabinet itself to make sure that there is no mold or moisture damage that needs to be attended to while the apartment is vacant itself. Another thing to check is the drain operation and stopper, to where you'll want to run water into the sink and look underneath to make sure that there's no leaks. In addition, this gives you opportunity to check the aerator. This particular aerator, you can see there's water coming around the outside to where it would need to be replaced. Be sure and test the garbage disposal if your particular unit has one. You'll want to turn on all of the lights in the apartment to make sure that the bulbs are working. While you're in the kitchen, go ahead and check the operation of the dishwasher, your stove. One thing to be aware of on the stove is every stove should have an anti-tip device on it to keep the stove from dumping over or pulling onto a resident or child. In addition, verify that the underside of your vent hood is clear and grease-free. This can be a fire hazard. Some parts of the country will also require, for insurance purposes and by code, some of the fire stop that gets mounted underneath there to prevent grease fires and kitchen fires. With the refrigerator, the most essential thing to check on the turn or when you're doing the make-ready is to clean the condensing coils, either on the back or on the underside of the unit. In many cases, the only time that you and I are going to have a good shot to get into the apartment to do a thorough cleaning of the refrigerator condenser coils is when the apartment is vacant. As we're going through the apartment, be sure and take safety into consideration as well as cosmetic issues. Here we have an outlet that first of all has a cracked cover plate to where that cover plate would be very easy to fall off and could injure someone. But in addition to just the cosmetic issues, we have a safety issue to where the ground plug or grounding terminal on the outlet itself is cracked and broken. This outlet should be replaced, and I'm sure will be replaced on the turn. While you're in the apartment, be sure and at least change the air filter. If you have enough time, go ahead and clean the evaporating coils as well. In addition to interior, be sure and look at problem areas. We have a wasp's nest up in the ceiling of the deck or patio area on this particular unit. And then down on the floor we have evidence of several birds being in the area. On a turn, you would want to take a shop vac or cleaning equipment to remove dirt and dust. From a safety standpoint, this is a huge mistake. Our painter, either when painting the ceiling or the walls or both, has put overspray on the sprinkler. Not only can this produce a pretty hefty fine, but your fire marshal can actually withdraw a certificate of occupancy if enough of these are found to be painted and oversprayed. It needs to be corrected and rectified as quickly as possible. Be aware that your local state ordinances or codes may require a person who has certification to replace this particular unit. In other words, in some cases, a maintenance technician may not be able to make this repair. Since we're on the topic of fire safety, be sure and test the smoke alarm in the apartment itself. Perform both a physical test by pushing on the button, which I'm not going to do now because of how loud it is. But if you have the availability, an even better test is to use a product such as smoke in a can or light a match and allow the smoke to go into the smoke detector itself. As part of your job while turning an apartment is to verify that your contractor has done what they were supposed to do. This apartment went through a small color change, and the painter who painted it did not paint the wall consistently. Be sure that you check all the light fixtures in the apartment. In this case, we have both overspray on the outside and there's bugs and debris and things on the inside of the globe. While you're inspecting or walking through the apartment, be sure that all the door stops have the rubber tip or the end on the door stop itself. In addition to this, make sure that when the doorstop strikes the wall, it keeps the doorknob off of the wall itself. Be sure and use opportunities that you have available to you. In this case, we have a crack in the wall. Now, while this may be just cosmetic or surface damage only, be sure and keep in mind that this could also indicate a foundation issue, a moisture issue, or something else that has caused the structure of the apartment to be compromised. The carpet that we happen to be in is a very good used carpet. It's been cleaned. There's no obvious cuts or stains. It's not pilling or doesn't have individual threading that's coming up to show. In addition, the carpet cleaner in this unit has done a pretty good job of cleaning it. With a carpet, you'll want to keep an eye out for stains and drops. In addition, as you walk around, be sure and feel under your feet that the padding is consistent. Look for cuts and rips, particularly in corners where pets may like to dig. When you're checking blinds, the blind cords should not be tied in any way, shape, or fashion. They should hang individually and have a stop on the individual cord itself. These are available from your blind supplier. In addition, make sure that all of the individual blind slats themselves are nice, even. This is another spot or place where you will see overspray a lot of times from a painter. While looking for cosmetic issues, be very aware where tile floors are concerned to check for cracks in the grout. One big area that your new resident is going to notice is corners. Where the ceramic tile and bathtub or countertop come together, every one of these should be caulked and sealed. Be sure that if you're replacing caulking, that you remove all of the old caulking before you install new. This area right here has come loose to where if this bathtub is used as a shower, water is going to go down and get in between the bathtub and the wall, possibly damaging the adhesion of the ceramic tile and damaging the drywall itself. It could also lead to a leak in a downstairs apartment ceiling. Overall, keep in mind that as you're turning the apartment, this is the impression your resident is going to have. So even though you've seen the same apartment, same floor plan 500 or 600 times, it's the first time your resident's going to have a chance to see what and how good of a maintenance technician and team that you are.